Hi guys, welcome to Multiverse. One thing that is often requested is more Batman Beyond videos. And especially one of you guys asked if I could make a history of Batman Beyond. So we're going to start by doing that video. I'll probably make one or two more Batman Beyond videos before long. But for now, let's get started with a history of our friend Batman Beyond. So let's get started. But before we get started about talking about Batman Beyond, we're gonna have to talk about the Justice League. And no, we're not going to talk about the Justice League that you guys are familiar with. Supposedly, they were trying to come up with a version of the Justice League where it was basically Batman mentoring Aquaman Jr., Wonder Woman Jr. Basically, it would have been Batman mentoring junior versions of the Justice League characters. The idea behind that was that basically the producers were thinking that the Batman animated series were attracting too much of an older audience and were trying to come up with a series that would attract a younger audience. Sadly, that is some kind of thinking that producers have more often than not. And it's something that goes way back. Basically, Robin was created because of a similar mindset. Like basically when Batman was published originally, the publisher thought that there should be a kid so that kids reading the comic would have a character to identify with, failing to realize that most readers actually identified with Batman. Even when I was a kid, no one really wanted to be Robin. Yes, Robin had his fans, but no one really was reading Batman and Robin and thought, "Ooh, I wish I could be Robin." People wanted to be Batman. Even kids didn't want to be Robin because it was a kid. Kids still wanted to be Batman. But it's a kind of thinking that's as old as time, and that sadly, even today, producers still have that kind of thinking. And there's a few reasons behind that. Basically, they want to attract a younger audience for a few reasons. One of the reasons is that there's a few ways that an animated series can make some money. The first way is by selling advertising. But usually animated TV shows will play on channels that are made for a younger audience, like the CW channel, for example. And they're going to try to sell advertising to toy companies. And basically, toy companies are going to be willing to pay for advertising if there is the audience that they're looking for that is watching the TV show. So in order to be able to sell the advertising at a high price, at a premium price to toy companies, well, they had to be able to show numbers that young audiences actually watch those shows, which is why you'll see sometimes shows like a Young Justice and even Batman Beyond get canceled because even though they're having good ratings, it's not the audience they're looking for. If they're looking for an audience between 5 and 10 years old, and the audience is actually between 16 and 20 years old, the audience is too old for them. So they won't be able to sell advertising to toy companies if it's not the audience that they're looking for. So in order to get the audience they're looking for, like kids from 5 to 10 years old, they're going to try to put younger characters in their shows, foolishly thinking that that's how they're going to get that kind of audience to watch their TV shows. So the first way that they can actually make money is by selling advertising to toy companies. The second way they can make money is by selling merchandising. So if they make action figures of their characters, if they make video games of their characters, if they make t-shirts and all that good stuff, that is how they can make money. If they make a whole bunch of merchandising and those merchandising are selling, then that is how they're actually making money with the TV show. So in a nutshell, selling advertising and selling merchandising. That's how animated series usually make their money. But we're going to talk about that a bit more when I'm going to talk about, sadly, when the show was canceled. So basically, the belief was that the Batman Adventure series was attracting an audience that was a little too old. So the goal was that if they were to take Batman and give him younger heroes to mentor, then that would attract a younger audience. Sadly, one thing that studios and even toy companies often fail to realize is that a lot of the people actually buying toys are not kids. A lot of people buying toys are older people, older guys in their 30s and their early 40s, who have a disposable income and are actually buying those toys for themselves. But somehow those studios and toy companies are still are still dead set into thinking that their target audience is kids, and fail to realize that there's a huge portion of their audience that's actually not kids, that's older people. So their idea was to have a Batman show basically with uh, a bunch of younger superheroes that he would be mentoring. But somehow that series did not happen. I'm not sure if the producers decided not to do it. I'm not sure if it's Bruce Timm and his crew who decided not to do it. Something happened along the way, and they decided to go into a completely different direction, and Batman Beyond. So again, the goal was to come up with a younger character in order to be able to attract a younger audience. And the obvious solution that someone thought of was, hey, let's have a younger Batman. And I remember when we first heard about that series, when we first heard that they were developing a series with a teenage Batman, a lot of us were scratching our heads. The first thing is that why don't you keep on doing the Batman series that you've been doing? That series was awesome. But at the time, we didn't know about what was happening behind the closed doors. And also, at the time, I was still fairly new in animation. Basically, some of you guys may not know, I've been working in animation for over 20 years now. And at the time, I didn't quite understand exactly what was happening behind the closed doors. Sadly, nowadays, I know a little too well how producers think. But way back then, I didn't quite get that. So when we saw that they had a show like Batman that was successful, that was critically acclaimed, and that had good ratings, but somehow all the producers I had in mind was to get rid of that show and to replace it with something else, which was crazy. But then again, at the time, I didn't know about the target audience they were hoping to attract. I didn't know about how they were trying to monetize their series, and somehow how they thought that Batman was attracting an audience that was too old. And I was exactly the older audience at the time that they didn't want to attract. Like I was in my late 20s, early 30s when we had Batman Beyond. So obviously they were trying to get a different audience than what they were getting with Batman. And one of their solution was to let's create a teenage version of Batman. And at first we thought it was a terrible idea. But when they finally released the series, I decided to give it a try. I didn't watch it on TV. Basically, what I ended up doing, I think I purchased a DVD where we had like the first 6 episodes of the series, if I'm not mistaken. And holy crap, I was hooked. Those first 6 episodes were all kinds of awesome. It was like getting a mixture of Batman with a younger Spider-Man that was still in high school, and maybe even a tiny touch of Iron Man because of the armor itself. But it was an amalgam of a lot of different stuff that ended up being giving us something really unique. It gave us what we never thought we wanted, a teenage Batman. So those first few episodes introduced us to Terry McGinnis, who was this young kid who had a bit of a rebellious streak. He had a bit of a fight with his father, and they didn't go all the way into Spider-Man territory where they didn't make him like a geek. He was not quite a jock, but almost. He had a girlfriend. He seemed to be doing sports, unlike Peter Parker. So it wasn't quite literally Spider-Man with a Batman costume. It was really a mix and match of various attributes from both Spider-Man as a teenager, but also of Batman. And one night he has a big fight with his father, decides to go away, and he ends up with a bit of a fight with an evil group called the Jokers. Basically, they were trying not to reuse villains from their old Batman series, but they were trying to still have some sort of continuity. Basically, we had a group of villains, well, not quite a villains, it was more like a street gang that was inspired by the Joker, but they were not led by the Joker, at least not at that point. So we had this group called the Jokers, and somehow Terry McGinnis ends up being into a bit of a fight with them. And then there's this old guy who decides to intervene. And this old guy is Bruce Wayne. And in that series, Bruce Wayne is like 90 years old or something. They made him like really, really old. Basically, the idea behind the show is that Bruce Wayne was way too old to be Batman anymore. So he just couldn't do it. At some point, through flashbacks and stuff like that, we saw that at some point he created the Batman Beyond suit to help himself continue to be the Batman because he was getting older. He wasn't as strong as he used to be. So the suit pretty much helped him being strong enough to keep on being the Batman. But then there was this one case where he actually just couldn't do it, and at some point he almost resorted to using a firearm to be able to fight off the bad guys. And as soon as he picks up the firearm and he's about to shoot the guy he's fighting, he realizes that that's it. He cannot be Batman anymore. If he has to go down and use firearms, he just cannot be Batman anymore. Which is a bit strange when you think about it, seeing how in Batman v Superman or even Justice League, Batman could not go more than 2 scenes without using some sort of gun. But originally, Batman wasn't supposed to use guns. Well, not really originally. For a long time, Batman wasn't supposed to use guns. He was pretty much against using guns. And in Batman Beyond, they used that. They used that at some point, when he just cannot do the job and he was tempted to use a gun, that's when he knew that it was over for him. He just could not do it anymore. So he put his Batman Beyond gear in an armory, and he stops being Batman after that. And then years later, that's when he encounters Terry McGinnis. He helps him fight off the evil Jokers, but he's still Batman. He's still, even though he's Bruce Wayne and he's old, he's still capable. But his body just cannot do it. So after fighting off the Jokers with Terry McGinnis, he doesn't have a heart attack, but he has a bit of a stroke. And then Terry has to help him to Wayne Manor, and he helps him take his medicine. And while Bruce Wayne is pretty much passed out after taking his medicine, Terry looks around, and Terry finds the entrance to the Batcave. And of course, he finds the Batman Beyond the suit. He doesn't take it right away, though. At first, he tries to ask Bruce to help him. Basically, he just found out that Bruce was Batman, and he tries to get him to help him because his father seems to be into some sort of trouble. But Bruce tells him that, no, I can't do it. I'm too old. I just cannot be Batman anymore. Terry doesn't react too well to that, but yeah, he storms off, and that's the end of it for then. Until he realizes that, holy crap, his father was murdered. So then he goes back to Wayne Manor, and he decides that if Bruce Wayne is not going to help him, he's going to help himself. So he grabs the Batman Beyond suit and goes off to fight the evil guys who killed his father. And it's pretty much the first main villain that Batman Beyond ends up fighting. There's this guy called Derek Powers, who basically had his father killed. And through some weird accident, Derek Powers will become a character known as Blight. He will have some sort of radiation powers, and he's going to pretty much become the first or the main nemesis of Batman Beyond, at least for a bit. And at first, the creators of the series were trying to give Batman Beyond his own villains, his own rogues gallery. But once in a while, some older villains would make an appearance. At some point, they had this pretty awesome episode with Mr. Freeze. At some point, there was also Talia al Ghul, who turned out to be Ra's al Ghul, who made an appearance. So there was this balance between new villains created especially for Batman Beyond, and older villains that would make an appearance. And sometimes it would be a mix and match of both. Sometimes it would be at some point there was this. We thought that they were going to reuse Bane for one episode, but then when we saw that Bane was just an old guy that just couldn't do it anymore either. And there was this new Bane, I guess. I forget if they gave him an actual name, but basically there was this new guy who was using Bane's formula to be able to give himself super strength, and he pretty much became the Batman Beyond version of Bane at the time. Although I think he only was there for one episode. Basically, the way that Batman Beyond was able to defeat him was to pretty much give him an overdose of his own formula. But one of the sad thing about Batman Beyond, like the series was awesome, but the biggest problem was the distribution. They for some reason it took them forever to finally come up with a box set with the whole series, or even with a box set with a full season. Very often they would release like a DVD with a handful of episodes, and then they would release another DVD with just a couple of more episodes. So they trying to get the whole series on DVD and later on Blu-ray, that was impossible. They just wouldn't release those episodes. And then at some point they released a direct to DVD movie called Batman Beyond: Return of the Joker, and holy crap, was that awesome! If you even if you never saw an episode of Batman Beyond, even if you have no intention of watching any episode of Batman Beyond, you have to watch Return of the Joker. It is a great not just a great episode, it is a great movie in itself. So the series lasted for 3 seasons. And sadly, it was cancelled not because of low ratings. The ratings were actually good. But sadly, it wasn't the ratings that the broadcaster wanted. They wanted a younger audience to watch that show in order to be able to sell advertising. And also, the other thing is that, from what I understand, the merchandising wasn't really selling. I can understand at the time, if you weren't watching Batman Beyond, you probably saw him as there's this way that Joker was calling him in the Return of the Joker. The Joker was calling him Bat Fake, and I can easily understand people buying the toys. If they had the choice between buying a real Batman action figure and an action figure of Bat Fake, I'm pretty sure they went and bought an action figure of the real Batman. So it would probably take a while before Batman Beyond built a big enough fan base to be able to sell any merchandising. Sadly, at the time, I guess the fan base wasn't big enough. The toys weren't selling enough. So after, I think, 4 seasons, sadly, Batman Beyond was cancelled. Actually, they had only 3 seasons of Batman Beyond. They were planning a fourth season, and somehow they never came around to doing it. They opted to make Justice League instead. Basically, in the third season of Batman Beyond, they did what they often do. They pretty much tested the ground. They had a couple of episodes. I think it was a two-parter episodes where they had a Batman Beyond version of the Justice League, and basically they were just testing the ground to see if there was any interest in a Justice League TV series. And instead of doing their fourth season of Batman Beyond as planned, they opted instead to make a Justice League TV series instead. But that wouldn't be the last time we saw Batman Beyond. Within a couple of episodes of the Justice League, we actually saw Batman Beyond once more. There was this two-parter where basically the Justice League were fighting the evil Kronos, and they ended up in the past. They ended up like 100 years in the past in the old Far West. And then at the end of the episode, they end up in the future, and they end up in the Batman Beyond future. And then the following episode, the whole episode pretty much happens in the Batman Beyond future, and everyone got quite a kick of seeing what was at the time the present time Bruce Wayne meeting the future Bruce Wayne. It was quite a meeting, and it was pretty awesome to see that. And also they had pretty much the what we could call the final Batman Beyond episodes within the Justice League TV series. Basically, I think it's the last episode, I think, of the third season of Justice League. It was an episode called Epilogue, and ironically enough, it wasn't really a Justice League episode. It was a Batman Beyond episode. Although we did see the Justice League in some sort of flashback, but the episode actually was happening during the Batman Beyond era. At the time, it was Terry McGinnis, which was much older. It was pretty much the adult Terry McGinnis, and he was still Batman using his same Batman Beyond costume, although with the proportion it kind of looked a bit different. And we pretty much had the last Batman Beyond episode within the Justice League TV series, which ironically enough was, I think it was supposed to be the last Justice League episode, but then they ended up doing one more season of Justice League after that. But basically, what we learned in that last episode was that Terry McGinnis wasn't just Batman Beyond. He wasn't just a young guy who was trained by Bruce Wayne. He actually was a clone of Bruce Wayne, or if you will, the son of Bruce Wayne, sort of, seeing how he pretty much was his clone. It was some sort of a failsafe. Basically, the idea was that Gotham will always need a Batman, and having clones of Bruce Wayne to pretty much take up the mantle was part of some sort of failsafe plan to try to ensure that there would always be a Batman. And then, of course, there was a bit of drama when Terry realizes that Bruce Wayne is actually quote unquote his father, and why didn't Bruce Wayne tell him? And so, of course, it leads to a bit of drama between him and Bruce. But pretty much by the end of the episode, he comes to term with all that, and and that was pretty much the finale, or so we thought at the time. That was pretty much the last episode of Batman Beyond that we would get, at least for a while. We didn't really get more episodes after that, or if we did, I really don't remember. But what we got was a whole bunch of comics. There were Batman Beyond comics, but bear with me, it's going to be a bit convoluted to talk about all those comics because there was a lot of different series, a lot of reboots, a lot of series that would last for a while, be cancelled, and then rebooted as a new Batman Beyond series. So bear with me, this next part will be a bit tricky to explain. So as I mentioned early on, getting episodes of Batman Beyond, getting like a box set with a full series, a full season, let's say within one box set, or even better, getting a box set of the whole series, that was not an option for a long, long time. So if you wanted to have some Batman Beyond episodes, you had to get a few episodes bits by bits here and there, depending on what DVD they would manage to release and which episode they would decide to put on those DVDs. So the only way to really be able to follow the adventures of Batman Beyond, if you could not get your hands on the DVDs or if you weren't watching the show on TV, was through the comics. They started first with a miniseries. It was a 6 issues, and the first and last issue pretty much were a repeat of a couple of episodes we had before. Basically, we got the origin episode, and then we got an episode where Batman Beyond was fighting the evil Blight. I forget the rest of the series. I read those comics like a long time ago. But basically, the early comics were pretty much a repeat of what we already saw in the animated series. And then they decided to launch afterwards. I guess the sales on the miniseries were good enough that they decided to launch an ongoing series with Batman Beyond. So I guess this ended up being a Batman Beyond Volume 2, I suppose. And as you can see in the first issue, you had Batman versus Batman, the old versus the new. There was some sort of mind control involved and all that good stuff. It's been a long time since I read those comics. So, but basically, something takes over Bruce, and he ends up fighting Terry McGinnis because of that. And Volume 2 of the series lasted for a couple of years, and then it was cancelled, and then I think we were like 10 years without any Batman Beyond comic. And then they decided to release a new Batman Beyond series at some point. And that's where things started to get messy. We would get a new series for a year, and then they would relaunch that new series again, and then they would relaunch it, and at some point they relaunched it as Batman Beyond Unlimited or something, and then Batman Beyond Universe, and then we went to Volume 5, and then we went to Volume 6. Like basically, they relaunched. They relaunch and relaunch and relaunch the series quite a few times, and then we had the New 52, and again within the New 52, between the short time that the New 52 lasted, we had like 3 relaunch of Batman Beyond, and then there was another relaunch when there was Rebirth, so it became a pretty chaotic mess, and also at some point it was Batman Beyond Terry McGinnis, but then at some point they had this series where it actually was Tim Drake who became Batman Beyond for some reasons. So I didn't follow those series very closely, and even to me it was a bit of a mess, and it was yeah, it was a mess. There's no other words than that. So there was a whole bunch of comic series with Batman Beyond. There even was the series called Future's End or something like that. And Batman Beyond seemed to have been a big player in that series. And I think that's when I think they killed Terry McGinnis in that series, and then Tim Drake became the new Batman Beyond or something. So again, it was a little convoluted and a bit of a mess. And sadly, I didn't really follow up after that. So the last comic with Batman Beyond I saw was pretty much Future's End, where pretty much Batman Beyond has to come back in the past to prevent some sort of cataclysm. I think he has to prevent Brother Eye from taking over the future or something like that. And then he ends up being dead a little, and he ends up being replaced by Tim Drake, and then Tim Drake becomes the new Batman Beyond somehow. So that's pretty much the last I saw of Batman Beyond in the comics. But there is one last thing that we got with Batman Beyond. Actually, two things, but let's start with there's one last thing we got from Darwin Cook, the late Darwin Cook. There was this little short about Batman Beyond that was made, I think it was for the 75th anniversary of Batman or something. And in that short, we had Batman Beyond facing off against a horde of Batman from the past. We had the Adam West Batman, the Brave and the Bold Batman, the Beware the Batman, the 1989 Batman, the Dark Knight Returns Batman. We had a whole bunch of different Batmans in that little short, and it was all kinds of awesome. If you never saw it, I would strongly suggest that you go take a look. It's worth watching. And more recently, a great thing we got concerning Batman Beyond is an awesome Batman Beyond set of gear that we got in DC Universe Online. I know that there was a skin that you could have in Arkham Knights, if I'm not mistaken, and there's a few skins that you probably could get in other games as well. But right now, basically, my videos are pretty much about DC Universe Online, and right now we got a really cool Batman Beyond look in DC Universe Online, and it's all kinds of awesome. And I'm not the only one thinking that, because a lot of players have been using at least part of that suit, maybe sometimes all of that suit. It seems to be really popular amongst players. We see a lot of players using it in the Watchtower, and it is all kinds of awesome. So if you're playing this universe online and you have a Batman character, or even better, a Batman Beyond character, you want to have that suit for your Batman character. So that is pretty much it for our little history of Batman Beyond. So basically we covered what led to the creation of Batman Beyond, the Batman Beyond series itself. I probably could have talked a bit more about Batman Beyond Return of the Joker, but I might make a video just about that. It is that awesome. And of course, then it led to a whole bunch of comics. The comics are a bit of a mess. I don't think I would make videos about those. And then, of course, as you know, we got a brand new suit not that long ago with our friend Batman Beyond. So who knows what we'll get in the future? I guess we're gonna have to wait and see. So that's pretty much it for now, guys. So as always, thanks for watching, and hopefully I'll see you guys next time. Bye bye.